that Krishna is going to reveal a secret to Arjun in this verse. But first let's say the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Desh Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Starting with this magic mantra is so auspicious. Rather, our scriptures tell us that none of our spiritual endeavors or any endeavor is actually complete without the recitation of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It is this magic Maha Mantra which takes the fault out of everything in this age of Kali or Kali Yuga, where everything is full of faults, everything is faulty. So this Maha Mantra is something which renders everything pure and faultless. So, last verse 2.39, we saw Krishna explain to Arjun a little bit about Karma Yoga. Now he is proceeding to do so. And Srila Prabhupada gave us a wonderful, detailed purport explaining so many nitty-gritties of the Nishkam Karma Yoga. For instance, what is exactly Nishkam Karma Yoga, what is Sankhya, because Krishna mentions Sankhya also to Arjun, that I have explained Sankhya to you, Arjun. And Srila Prabhupada explains that here Krishna is talking about which Sankhya? The Sankhya of the knowledge of soul, that is. So, from here on, Krishna is giving more and more detailed explanation of the Nishkam Karma Yoga. So this shloka 2.40 says, Neha bhikram nasho asti pratyayvayo na vidyate swa alpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Swa alpam asya api dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Now, what does that mean? The translation by Srila Prabhupada: in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Now, what a wonderful guarantee Krishna is giving to us, to Arjun and to us. Yes, it is a wonderful guarantee. Will we ever get such a guarantee in any of our material endeavors, in anything that we do in this world? Can anybody say for 100% you are going to be successful? We never know that, because there are so many variables to our action. If any one of them goes wrong, we may fail, and if we fail permanently. Well, of course, we can resume the effort, but then the point arises, whatever success also we get in this material world is very temporary, because all the success that we get in this world, in the material sense, is going to end when this body ends, which means this investment is only a short-term investment. But Krishna is here talking of a long-term policy. No, not long-term. He's talking of an eternal policy, which means a policy that is going to give you returns till the end of time. Well, even that phrase is not correct, because eternality means there is no time. So forever and ever and ever, we keep getting the returns. Now, don't we all like to invest our money in something that can give us long-term returns? Now, investing in Krishna consciousness, investing in spiritual endeavor is what gives us eternal returns forever and ever. Srila Prabhupada gives us a wonderful purport that activity in Krishna consciousness, that means working for the satisfaction of Krishna without any expectation of our own sense gratification, is the highest quality of transcendental work, highest quality of divya karma, as we call it, divya karma. This karma is so divya, so transcendental, because it is not going to get us bound in this material world. And whatever effort we invest in the spiritual realm is going to reap benefits for us forever and ever. It's never going to go away. Now, Srila Prabhupada explains this very beautifully, that any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure. It's a very wonderfully written purport, must go through it, We know that, suppose we start studying for an exam, right? And we give it our best shot, we prepare day and night. But suppose something happens at the end, maybe we panic, or maybe we can't reach the examination hall in time, maybe something untoward happens and we just can't go to the school or the college. What happens at that time? The entire effort of preparation goes waste, because we do not get the result out of it. So unless the material work is 100% complete, we cannot reap its benefit. But any effort that we put in the spiritual side will be added up again and again. Whatever we do in this life, maybe at different points of our life, or even after this life, in the next life. Suppose we put in the effort so much so that we end up at 10% in this life, but we cannot complete it to 100%. The spiritual, endeavor, that is, the spiritual path that we are choosing to progress on. Suppose we can't complete that entire, process. Then what happens? Does what we did in this life goes waste? No. Even if we did 10%, or as Srila Prabhupada, even if we give it 2%, what happens is the next life we start from 3%. The 2% of the previous life gets permanently credited in our spiritual account. You see, it never goes waste. You see, there's a beautiful verse that comes up later in Bhagavad Gita, that even if we cannot complete the yogic process and get free from this material world, or go to the, back to Godhead, go to the spiritual world, then also we will have at least the guarantee of taking birth in a Brahmin family, a pious Brahmin family, or a very, very rich family, so that we can continue with our efforts in bhakti, in devotional service, in spiritual, progress. So God is actually counting every single name we chant. God is counting every single effort we are making to serve Krishna, to serve the devotees. Krishna is counting every little effort we are making in the spiritual direction, and he will never ever going to let it go waste. He's building up, he's actually maintaining a page in the accounts book, for us. Okay, in this life or this time, this person did this small thing for me. Okay, let me add it up. He's actually waiting for us to complete it, maybe in this life or next life, and he's helping us all the time. Now, this is really what can be called Zindagi ke saath bhi, Zindagi ke baad bhi, because this credit will be used by us even after this life, even after when we give up this body. You see, so beautifully, Srila Prabhupada makes a reference to a wonderful account from Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam is the history. It's not mythology. It is history of our ancient Vedic periods, or even pre-Vedic periods, probably. So here he's making a reference to the story of Ajamil. Ajamil was a pious Brahmin, a very pious Brahmin, who in the initial years of his life does all the right things. He is, piously practicing all the Vedic principles, looking after his mother and father. He has a pious wife who, they have a good relationship in the sense that they are, carrying out their grihastha life in a very nice, Vedic manner. So nothing is wrong in their life. But once, while having gone to the forest to pluck flowers to offer the Lord, he sees live pornography in action. He sees a prostitute in action. So that time he falls down. He develops such an intense desire to marry that prostitute that he eventually gives up his mother and father, his good wife, everybody, just to bring that prostitute home and marry her. And he does that. Well, he lives to be, somewhat about 80 to 90 years of age, and, produces many children with the prostitute living there. And to keep her happy, he takes to all sorts of bad deeds, stealing and drinking and everything. He just it's as if, he's never been a Brahmin at all. So he takes up all sorts of bad deeds. But by some good fortune, well, let's not say this was some good fortune, but the Lord inspires him from within to name his youngest son Narayan. So when he's about to die, he calls out in fear. He sees the Yamadutas, because obviously a person who is very sinful, only Yamadutas will come to get him. So when he sees the Yamadutas, he starts shouting in fear, and he calls out to his youngest son, to whom he's the closest. So he calls out, Narayan, Narayan. Obviously, at this time, he was not calling out to Krishna. He was not calling out to Lord. Well, Krishna and Narayan, the same. Narayan comes from Krishna. So, he's although calling out to his own son, because at the time of death, he calls out the Lord's beautiful names. The Vishnudutas come immediately to argue out the Yamadutas of not taking him along with them to the Yamaraj city. He says, since he is called out Narayan's name, we will not allow you to take him. He will have to be given one more chance to improve his activities. At that time, he realizes his mistakes. Then he goes to Haridwar, and for some years to come, he practices bhakti, devotional services. He completes what he was not able to. God gives him a chance. So he might have done that 10-20% earlier before he fell down to the prostitute. But then he's given the chance to bring that 20% to 100% and then goes back home, back to Godhead. This is a beautiful, story which illustrates to us how even this bit of an effort on the spiritual path is ever wasted. It's a beautiful verse being quoted by Srila Prabhupada from Srimad Bhagavatam. Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harer bhajan apakvo atha patet tato yadi yatra kvava bhadram abhud amushyakim ko vartha apto bhajatam swadharmataha. So, Srila Prabhupada is giving us the translation also that for someone who falls down on account of not completing his work on the spiritual path, that is, what is the loss? There is no loss. But on the other hand, what is there to gain even if one does his material duties perfectly? Now that's a big thing to say. Let's ponder over this. If we are doing all our material duties perfectly, and that would include, doing our jobs, bringing up our children, doing some social work, one might say that, of course, I am not being selfish. I am doing some social work, like I am running a blood donation club, or I am, distributing blankets and I'm distributing food and so on and so forth. But all this comes in the category of material work. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that even if we are doing all our material work perfectly, there is nothing to be gained eventually, because ultimately this work is going to keep us here in this material world. Even in the Bible, it is said, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffers the loss of his soul? Because by doing material work, we do not profit the soul. Such a big thing to say, So there goes our misconception that even if we are doing all our duties properly, doing our job honestly, running our house perfectly, so that's not really anything for our soul. It's a wonderful thing to say, actually. That rings a bell somewhere that we need to wake up to the call of the soul. The soul, and get it connected back to Krishna. Because otherwise, we are just going to keep going round and round and round in this material world. And that's why chanting of the Maha Mantra and reading of wonderful scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita becomes so important. Because it is these scriptures or shastras through which we can transcendentalize our work. It is then we will come to know what really is work in Krishna consciousness. We might have all sorts of excuses. I don't have the time. Well, if Arjun could make time when he was standing in midst of the two armies, just the fight was in fact about to begin. The conch shells have already been blown. We are reading that, right, from the first chapter. Who could have been busier than him? And still he took out time, because unless we pause and give time to hear this transcendental knowledge, we will never know which direction we are going in. That's one of the excuses. The other one is, I already know everything. I don't need to know anything more. Well, Arjun also was well trained in all the dharmic scriptures, but he never said that. He said in, chapter 2, 2.7, in fact, he says that, Krishna, I am your disciple. Please instruct me. He humbly surrenders to the Guru in the form of Guru Krishna. So, in fact, there are so many excuses. We will take up some more excuses next time. For instance, I have so many duties to perform, but Krishna says in chapter 3 that performing your duties doesn't go against Krishna consciousness. You can keep doing your duties and keep thinking of me. Then someone might say that I'm not intelligent enough. Well, in chapter 4, Krishna tells that you don't need any high sort of intelligence to understand this. You just need to be humble. You just need to be a friend to everyone and a friend to me without envy. That's the quality you need to understand this transcendental knowledge. You don't need to be intelligent. So there are actually no excuses. We'll take up more excuses next time, but actually no excuses for us not to read Bhagavad Gita. So I would urge you, I would request you, please start this transcendental process now and here, because this is our chance at transcendentality. With that, let's speak the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and be happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.